Okay, thank you for the intro, Jonathan. Looks like other board worked. Okay, so this session is about robotics education and learning. And just to give a background, as Jonathan introduced, I'm an assistant professor in Georgia State University. And my work is in the area of wireless communications, particularly optical wireless. And I do a bit of robotics as well, including mobile systems, computing, and so on. But today I'm not going to talk about those things, and in fact, I'm going to talk about a pressing issue in the community, particularly the inclusivity of women and computing and engineering. And I'm going to shamelessly use the name of robotics to lure students into, or talk about one of our initiatives that lures women into the field, and hopefully that's successful, and we're going to hear about it more in a few years. Um, so the numbers are actually staggering, and again, this is not a mystery to this community about the representation of women in our community, especially not just robotics but STEM in general. But I think this report from NCWIT, the National Center for Women in Information Technology, earlier this year, gives a startling perspective and puts everything right in front of us to show how bad it is actually, and kind of it's a slap on the face actually to tell us what are we doing about it, and maybe what we're doing is not sufficient, and we need to do more about it, and many of us need to do more about it. So, just to give a perspective, the number of female advanced degree recipients is declining. It's on the lower ramp, declining ramp. We don't like to see such graphs, right? And female STEM research professionals, the number of female STEM professionals relative of the entire population is less than 20%, so representation of women is less than 20%. That's just staggering. And interestingly, it's 60% in life sciences, more than 50-50. There seems to be some trend in the interest, but also probably the kind of opportunities probably we're giving for women in our field as opposed to life sciences is something to note. And again, this is something for higher authorities, departments, and schools to think about. The female to male faculty ratio is still low, it's about 25%. That's something I don't think we are able to solve it in the near future, but clearly it's about hiring, and there are many dynamics to it, and I'm not going to talk about that. But on the positive note, the community is doing a lot about it. There are lots of conferences pertaining to women education, women empowerment. Motivational speakers come over there, especially, and in fact, it's a pleasant coincidence that I'm talking about women education and inclusivity in the same week as a Grace Hopper celebration right now in Orlando, where more than 10,000 female, not just students, personnel are coming together and motivating themselves, sharing ideas, and so on. And if you're a faculty, I totally urge you to send at least one of your students every year. Every year, at least one student from our lab represents, and I've been lucky to have at least two students represent every year to this Grace Hopper celebration. Every time they come back, the kind of stories and the kind of motivation they bring in is completely different. Yeah, I never got a chance to go there, but yeah, it's not a women exclusive conference. Just keep that in mind. But not just for conferences, there are these organizations, National Center for Women in Information and Technology. They provide grants as well to for any kind of initiatives which goes through a vetting process, and they're open to all. They work a lot with NSF, broadening participation in computing, plans in developing them, and of course we have the well-known CRA women, AC women organizations, IEEE women in engineering and technology, and so on and so forth. But what's basically common in these kinds of initiatives, if I put it all together, is about motivating women to come into this field and enabling it and motivating them and showing the big picture what it is all about. But motivation alone doesn't suffice, and all these people are doing a great job to do that. So that really takes a big stress out of us. What we need to do is enable, kind of show, pull them into the field and give them opportunities to actually get their hands dirty and do it. Success, failure doesn't matter, but they have to learn, and that's how they need to be. You kind of pull their hands in. They're already motivated, thanks to all these folks who are motivating them, but we need to pull that. So, as a faculty, what could we do? And we go through this typical proposal approach. Okay, what's the approach that we could take? And just to give you a perspective from the university that I come from, Georgia State University is in downtown Atlanta, and hosts 55,000 students, of which the majority of them are from low-income background, and many of them from first generation students, which means that those students are the first ones to go to college. And we have a huge dropout ratio, which we're definitely trying. The university is doing a lot to improve that. But also, we have a lot of women students, but there are a lot of stories that I've heard about. The true stories that I hear from women students is that they're from a low-income population, they just could not continue their studies, or they have a family to sustain, which is something that the male population doesn't seem to be complaining. It's more whether they're interested to pursue or not. But keeping that in mind, I thought it would be a great idea to host an initiative in Georgia State University. And thanks to a lot of well-motivated, enthusiastic students, we put up this plan for a three-phased approach to train female students in robotics. So here I'm using robotics more as a vehicle to enable computing and engineering inclusivity for women. And it's the whole idea is to generate a pipeline for them to go into undergraduate degrees from high school, and then probably graduate degrees, advanced degrees, and then be successful professionally, and create this kind of cyclic pipeline so that they can help their peers as well to do this. So I'll talk a bit about this approach and what we intend to do. Just to give you an idea, we are kind of starting this approach literally next week. We are starting the first phase next week with the first meeting that we'll be talking about. Actually, we're going to talk about Python programming in the next week. The idea is that in the phase one, we will train the students on different enabling technologies, the programming, and it's kind of get their hands dirty on the different components that go into robotics, or I can kind of generalize and say engineering and computing. We may not be able to cover everything that's possible, but we will try to cover kind of the most common factors that are common in robotics, as well as particularly robotics. And interestingly, I can share a statistic. When I put this announcement for, hey, I'm forming this kind of robotics club. We want to be competitive in the near future. How many of you are interested? And of course, I mentioned that we're trying to do this all-female inclusivity club kind of thing. And immediately had, over a time of 1 month, we had about 30 registrants. That's good, but still smaller than we have a population of 2,000 majors in our CS department, and we have about 40% are female. So that's still a small number, but that's okay. But interestingly, when I said that we're going to do something about Do Good Robotics, that we are going to have projects that are going to go back and help the humanity, or we're going to take an altruistic sense to this learning purpose. We have 100 registrants today. Clearly, this Do Good thing does something, and I felt that I should talk about this precisely in this forum. Of course, we didn't name it as Do Good; we just named it as humanitarian. But that's the same idea. So looks like this Do Good thing chimes well with students, particularly, and maybe women as well. That's good. Let's cash on it, and that's what we're going to do in phase two. Cash on it, kind of take up a problem which the students will build upon, and as a faculty, it's basically to advise them around it. And thanks to the Girls Who Code Loop, I don't know how many of you know about Girls Who Code. It's a national organization that basically encourages or creates opportunities for students. It creates peer mentoring groups in different high schools at high school level as well as the undergraduate level. And other organizations as well. The idea is to enable them to code. It's kind of getting them into the computer science. When we are taking girls, we're probably taking girls to code to a different level, to robotics probably. And a lot of enthusiastic members from the club are part of this. And my lab students, including me, are facilitating the kind of teaching that's required for it. And hopefully it's going to be a cyclic process where peer mentoring will happen after year 3. In year 3, we are interested in emulating a competition. Of course, it's very ambitious to think about getting into a competition like DARPA challenge or any robotics competition, RoboSoccer or something like that. But if you don't aim high, if you don't think for the moonshot problems, you're not going to solve them. You're not going to do anything about it. And the girls, the first meeting, when I told about it, I was more taking myself back. Okay, you're going to think about moonshot problems, but I know the reality. But they were really, no, let's go for this. Hey, there's a DARPA challenge. What do we need to do about it? And that's where, as an advisor, I can channel them. But in phase 3, in the year 3 from now, we would definitely want to do at least a university level or regional level competition to put them in the perspective of a competitive mode. And hopefully in the next 3-cycle phase, we are there somewhere, our girls are representing the DARPA Challenge or the RoboSoccer, any of these big competitions that run nationally, internationally. And I'm just going to leave you away with some final thoughts. And sorry, since we're getting started with this, I don't have any sample data or results to share. And hopefully, I'm pretty sure this symposium is going to continue over the years. I'm going to talk about it next year, how we went through phase 1 and so on and so forth. But definitely, we cannot solve problems in community without being a part of it. So we need involvement from you. You're the community, basically. We need inputs from you. Feel free to give your comments, remarks. Hey, this cannot happen. This is ambitious. No, we have tried that. We would definitely like to know your stories. You can talk to me in person. I'm going to be here today, tomorrow, entire day, throughout the sessions. Or you could email me, of course, but you can also, I'm going to try to reach you out through a survey, keeping in mind through the IRD and all those things if it's necessary. And if you have a Girls Who Code club in an organization or any other women-related club organizations who would like to partner with us, or you can share any of your activities with us, that will be great. We would definitely like to learn. And as a whole, this initiative is open to collaborations naturally by the structure of it. In future, we would like to see more undergraduate research experiences enabled from them. Maybe collaborative teaching efforts. We could use them in their courses, or we could teach more courses collaboratively. And of course, if you're around the area, around Atlanta, please ping me. We would love to have you give a talk over there. And if you have an inspiring story, please share. And our website will be out soon, and I'll be happy to share it with all of you. And with this note, I'm going to thank all of you and take some questions before we get to the next topic. Thank you.
I think we have time for maybe one question, since we're working on the clock here.
Thanks, I really liked that talk and sort of very much gung-ho behind this idea. But one thing I've noticed, what, if anything, is being done to address the fact that these girls are in environments sometimes that might be toxic? There might be a lot of microaggressions coming from the community. So it's not just empowering girls, but it's about making sure that other people are not, forgive my language, assholes to them.
So, I get what you say.
Yeah.
I'll keep that point in mind. Yeah. I hope that was a remark. I didn't know you had a question.
It was a question. It's like we've done, as a community, we've done great work in trying to empower women and girls in STEM. but we still got a ways to go in terms of making sure that they are not driven out because of other influences.
Maybe I need more context to that. Because we haven't experienced something, we are pretty much nascent. So maybe what you're saying is that it's something that we might experience in the near future, at least that is fine. We do absolutely have no data samples to share. This is what happened and how we tackled it. Maybe next year we'll have more points to share on that. But that's definitely what we want to learn from you. Hey, keep in mind this could happen, keep in mind that could happen. And of course, I don't belong to the gender. There is up to a point where I can empathize what are the issues, but clearly talking to the appropriate gender really help me understand that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.